Welcome to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. This is our 12th episode. Today is Sunday, April 28th, late in the evening. And I guess we should start this off by saying that this maybe is going to be a video episode, depending on if I have time to edit tomorrow or not, because we're kind of um, doing this last minute. I was up and away all weekend, but now we're back and ready to go. We got a good amount to talk about today, but I guess, yeah, check out that YouTube channel at always, not at, but just always Bayern Chelsea. And if you see something, then that's a good sign. If you don't, I'm deeply, deeply sorry.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so we have some good stuff to talk about today. Chelsea and Aston Villa had a 2-2 draw yesterday on Saturday. Not without controversy though. And Bayern had a nice win 2-1 against Frankfurt. The Chelsea women had some good performances and then had a not so good I guess result over the weekend as well. And then we'll preview the big Bayern and Real Madrid match on Tuesday.
Yeah, lots going on this weekend. Saturday was really just a loaded day where I was stuck to my couch for a little bit, was kind of watching the Bayern game at the coffee shop, but then back to the couch for both the Chelsea matches. So, really exciting weekend. Um, some good results, some poor results, but always good to see all the teams in action and fun to watch no matter what, even if things aren't going well.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, I watched what I could. I watched most of the Bayern match. And then I watched, yeah, highlights from Chelsea as well. So I have a few things to say about the Chelsea men, but do you want to kick things off by just shouting out and recapping the Chelsea women's match?
Yeah, of course. It was a fun match to watch for really just the reason being that it was entertaining. Wasn't a good result for Chelsea, unfortunately. It was the second leg of the semifinal. We had mentioned in one of our prior pods that they looked great in the first leg, going to Barcelona's home ground and starting off with the 1-0 lead. Unfortunately, back at Stamford Bridge, which was sold out, and it was a really awesome crowd, they lost 2-0. Wasn't necessarily their fault because the ref rigged the game for Barcelona. I think if you ask anybody that watched the game, even Barcelona fans, they would admit that. It was pretty obvious from anybody that was there watching the game, watching on the stream. You could just tell at every single point of the match, the ref was trying to give the game to Barcelona, gave Chelsea a red card in the 59th minute, and then gave Barcelona a pen later in the match to really solidify things and give them the victory. And it was a shame because this happening for the UEFA kind of just paints the women's end of the sport in a poor light, which is something that they don't need at this time when women's soccer has been gaining so much momentum over the last few years. So it's really a shame to see because everybody's watching this exciting match and to have something like that happen, just unfortunate. And what made it worse is these fouls were completely phantom, and you got the ref smiling. Just disgusting.
Dang. So yeah, that is I guess what Emma Hayes finishes out the Premier League now, and then I guess that was her chance at the UCL trophy, which that's the only one that she doesn't have, I guess, from what I was looking at.
Yeah, I don't even know if she does or doesn't. I know she's won a lot of the women's super leagues in England, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It'll be her last game at Stamford Bridge because the women's team doesn't play there normally. But she actually had one of the great press conferences that you'll ever see after the match. Completely shredded the ref. Made a point to say that the ref essentially had zero experience, reffing big matches, has historically given cards that are super soft and unnecessary. So was awesome to see because she clearly just didn't care at all about probably any fines or whatever she would have to end up paying. And that ref, quite frankly, deserved it. So that was kind of a cool thing to see at the end, but still an unfortunate result.
Wow. Big, big harsh words. Okay, well, thanks for that recap. Let's transfer over now to something slightly more positive, or I guess massively more positive, depending on who you ask, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, on Saturday, Bayern Munich got a 2-1 victory against Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. Harry Kane scored 2 goals, and Harry Kane is yeah, he's still a ways away, I guess, from the Bundesliga scoring record, which is 41 goals. And now he has 35 goals in his inaugural season in the league. So I guess that's something to keep watching the Bundesliga for. If you're a fan, he's got 3 more matches to score 6 goals. So it's a little bit of a tough task, but that was, I guess, a nice highlight from this one. And then a not so nice highlight, I guess you could say, was the injuries to Konrad Leimer and Matthijs de Ligt. That kind of sucks, but we'll see. They got to rest Leroy Sané again. They rested Jamal Musiala. He's been dealing with a new injury now, which is pretty frustrating. Um, but yeah, like overall, you can't complain about a 2-1 win, especially against a Frankfurt side who's pretty solid. They're sitting at sixth in the Bundesliga right now, and I thought there was good performances from not, obviously Harry Kane, but I think Thomas Muller had a good performance. Rafa Guerrero had a good performance. Konrad Leimer, before he got hurt, had a great performance just with the assist he had to Kane, and I think Leon Goretzka also played well. So they're building a little bit of momentum for Madrid. They had a good amount of chances. Like the game could have been, 3 or 4 to 1 pretty easily.
Yeah, I thought Bayern looked great. It wasn't a super exciting match by any means based on the scoreline and just kind of how things turned out. But Bayern played well, did everything they needed to do to keep the momentum up. As you mentioned, Kane had a phenomenal game once again, did score that penalty. For those out there that are kind of thinking he only scores pens, I would argue that he only has four in the Bundesliga this season. So, he's more than just a Pinaldo, if you will. But always exciting to watch Kane play. I'm going to be looking forward to how he finishes in the Bundesliga and as well as going up against a fantastic team this week in Real Madrid. So, as I mentioned, momentum is still strong, which I think is amazing for Bayern.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. Obviously they're going to need every bit of momentum. They're going to need every bit of limited distractions, which there there's a handful of distractions out there, honestly, in the media right now relating to Bayern Munich. Yeah, and I was actually chuckling about it too because I was listening to a football podcast, not called Always Bayern Chelsea, and the host was saying the exact same thing about Kane scoring the penalty, and they were talking about the Bundesliga record, and like, oh yeah, he scores a lot of penalties, and then later on in the episode looked it up, and they were like, oh, he actually only has four in the Bundesliga this year, and I just kind of like laughed a little bit because yeah, it can seem like that, but yeah, Kane's the real deal, and if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The fact that he can score so many goals and also play so deep and have so many, good assists and near assists is really something to behold.
And not to make this a love fest for Harry Kane, but while we're at it, we might as well. You had that tweet, always Che, about how Kane really should be considered for the Ballon d'Or this year, especially if he continues playing well the rest of Bundesliga, last few matches, playing well in the Champions League, if they potentially make the final, especially if they would win the final. And then if he finishes 2024 strong with England, he really would have a case for that award, as you laid out perfectly in that tweet.
Thank you. Thank you. I was waiting to tweet that for so long for the right time, and I was like, you know what? This is the day that I lay this out because yeah, I'd like to hear more chatter about that. And I know that it's more of a, it's not quite just an individual award. A lot of times it has to do with how well your team does. So yeah, like you said, exactly. If Bayern advances and wins the UCL, or if England does well at the Euros, I don't see how he's not at least a top three, in the conversation contender. Um, but yeah, that was my overall reaction to the Bayern match. I don't have individual player ratings for this one. The main thing is like I want the team to be healthy for Madrid because now we have the question mark around Musiala, Sané, Gnabry, Limer, and De Ligt. So it's it's going to be interesting. Like these guys aren't, they're not practicing at full 100%, and some of them aren't practicing at all. So it's going to be tough. That was kind of my main like feeling about that game was let's just get through this without injuries and let's keep the momentum. But yeah, overall, I was not displeased with how they played.
Yeah, and you'll see the match preview coming out before this exciting Champions League match. But a lot of guys that right now are listed as TBD because we just don't know for sure how they're going to feel when they wake up on Tuesday for the match. I think some of them could play, some potentially, if they're still feeling some injury effects, won't play. I would lean towards anybody that's close is going to play, especially seeing that it's a huge match at home. You really want to make sure to start off on the right foot when you're playing in front of your fans. But we'll see. You never know what can happen, as I said, when you wake up on the day of the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys that I mentioned are going to suit up. And, that's not to say they're all going to start. I think they'll all be available and maybe they'll all play some minutes, but I don't know if any of those guys, I guess maybe Musiala, but most of those guys that I mentioned, I don't think any of them are going to play a full 90. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But before we talk a little bit more about Madrid, do you want to kind of go through our thoughts about the Chelsea Aston Villa match?
Yeah, and you do keep saying Ashton. It's sounding like you like throwing that H in there, which I kind
Aston,
of love. I think it
yeah.
sounds awesome. Um, and I'll always give shit to any of these Premier League teams. So no, but exciting match. I had so many thoughts. I was probably the most active on Twitter X as I've been really all season long since we've had this podcast. And I just had, frankly, a lot to say because there was so much going on with how they started, with how they finished, with how my mind was going about Pochettino and whether I wanted him to stay or not. So much was happening. And I don't know if it really did justice for you watching the highlights, but it was a crazy match.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, luckily I got those 17-minute, 20, I think this one was 17, but sometimes they're up to 20 minutes, um highlights and yeah, I mean, I don't know where you start. From my opinion, it was a spirited comeback from Chelsea. There were also some missed chances from Chelsea that looked like they should have went in. And then yeah, more drama at the end.
Yeah, so to start, really, it was a mirror image of the Arsenal match, which was unfortunate. You're going into a hostile environment on the road against a top four team. You can't start like shit, and Chelsea did it again, which is so frustrating. Conceding a goal that early, technically an own goal by Mark Cucurella, such a poor way to start the match. And you're just automatically thinking, well, this sucks. I'm gonna have to watch another match where Chelsea just completely shit the bed and don't look great at all.
Yeah,
And
flashbacks
then
for sure.
right, and they kind of settle in for a while, and it's looking like they might be in it, they might not. Jackson scores a goal, offsides by just a hair, brilliant goal, then misses a header off the post where he really should have scored it. XG on that was probably, zero point 0.2, zero point 0.3. And then Aston Villa score right before half, and it's 2-0 going into half. And you're thinking, here we go again. Chelsea, down by 1 or 2 at half against a top team. Second half, they're just going to get pummeled. And that's honestly where my mind was, which is why I was quite angry at Pochettino because based on everything I've seen lately, it just didn't seem like to that point that he was doing enough to rally the troops, to get everybody motivated to fight hard and play. I get the season hasn't been going well, but at that point in time, I needed to see something where there was a change of heart or a change in the way that they fight and play.
Yeah, I liked, what I saw in those highlights in that second half out of Chelsea. It really looked like they started to turn things around in spite of, like you said, missed opportunities, missed chances that in the past, I guess the past meaning the last couple of matches, they haven't really been able to turn things around after missed opportunities like that.
Yeah, so I forget which player said this after the match, but apparently the combo of Poch and Thiago Silva at halftime motivated the team. Whatever they said, I'm not sure. Who knows? They could have just shouted in Spanish and Portuguese at the team for all I know. Um, but that apparently motivated them. And yeah, they looked so much better in that second half. I mean, the entire game they dominated possession, but the second half they actually started doing more with it. They kind of were bringing Cucurella in toward the midfield and overloading the midfield, which we've never seen before all year. He's a left back, never has, to my knowledge, been in that midfield role, but they'd kind of bring him in, as I said, overloading and dominating that space. And whether it was that or some other slight adjustments that worked, but it was effective and they were able to win possession back in Aston Villa's half. So they were getting the ball in more advantageous positions. And that led to the first goal by Noni Madueke because they won it back so far up the pitch. And the ball kind of filtered back to Noni and he slots it right in there under Emi Martinez. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, we might have something here. Um, and then they kind of just keep chugging along, the little engine that could.
Yep.
And that little engine all season has been Conor Gallagher, as we know. He's a guy that fights tooth and nail every single match like it's his last match. Because for all we know, it might be if they sell him, but he scores a brilliant goal with his off foot, I might add, to level it at 2. And it was insane at that point. I mean, you're thinking, all right, we might actually go win this thing.
Do you think that that overloading of the midfield, which it's interesting that you said that, that's not something that I really gathered just from watching the highlights, of course, so I'm glad we're talking about it. Um, but do you think that that overloading of the midfield, like, was able to push Gallagher forward to be in spaces closer to the goal, or is that just something that he naturally does? Because I do like often see him, you know, getting good chances and close to the box, basically.
Yeah, so with those midfielders, a lot of times you interchange with the other guys that are in those areas. A lot of times he'll interchange with Palmer or Mudryk, and he'll end up on the left wing. Him and Caicedo can kind of switch around. So he will go up. And he's also what they would call a box to box midfielder. And it's literally what it sounds like. You're
Yeah.
going from box to box, which is why you end up in the offensive end of that box. So that's why he's getting up there. And certain midfielders can score a lot of goals that way. Frank Lampard, legend at Chelsea, who has the most goals scored ever, was a midfielder, but scored a lot because, he's in that that same kind of role where you're getting chances. But yeah, I think when you're putting Cucurella into the midfield like that, you're kind of pushing everybody up more. He's on that left side where Gallagher usually is, so that probably pushes Gallagher more toward the middle and to the right. And that
Yeah.
goal where he scored it specifically, was kind of on that right side, which you usually don't see him. And he's kind of curling into the left, which is why it was off the left foot. And as I mentioned, I mean, I don't know where that came from, but absolutely brilliant. I mean, it looked like he was a left-footed player.
It was awesome to see. And I personally, from watching Chelsea, really like what somebody like Connor can bring. Like you said, the box to box, I think that's a lot like Leon Goretzka on Bayern. Um, but what I was going to ask is, do you, there's so many rumors that Connor's going to be sold. Like, what do you think about that? Because from my standpoint, he's an awesome player and he's someone that I would love to keep on the team.
Yeah, so we will definitely be doing a complete analysis on this once the season ends because there's a lot of thoughts that I'd like to stretch out. But to keep it short for now, he's somebody I'd love to keep. I don't know if he's somebody I necessarily want in my starting 11 every single time out. The unfortunate thing is that you might need to sell him just based on PSR and these financial regulations. They might need the money for the 2024 fiscal end, year end, which will be 6/30. Um, so if they sell him, it's going to be before June 30th. So we'll see. I mean, if they literally need to sell him, then it's really not a decision. You just sell him.
Yeah.
If there's a way you can fit him into the team, I know Poch loves him. He just he does show more heart than anybody, but it also hurts him at times. He's got the most fouls in the entire league. Yes, he's also got the most tackles, but a lot of fouls too. So there's kind of both sides of that coin. Um, like I said, he's somebody I wouldn't necessarily want in my top 11, but a great teammate for sure, which we need guys like that.
Yeah, that's what I love about him too is that heart and that effort that I always see him show. Um okay, so after that Gallagher goal, I know that there was a chance or two that could have been put away by Palmer. Is that the next thing you wanted to go into, or is there something that I'm missing in between this gap?
No, I think that's kind of it. I mean, there was that chance by Palmer, the one I'm thinking of, and maybe there's a second too, but the one he really should have scored. I think it was either a mistake by the goalie or a defender where they, I think, just passed it to Palmer or he stole it from somebody that wasn't looking.
Yeah, it was
And had
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and kind of had this run out where he could either pass it to the left. I think he had two guys on his left, Jackson and somebody else. Instead, chose to deke out the defender so he had space more toward the middle. And I don't know if he was trying to either chip it over Martinez or slot it just to the right of him, but probably should have scored it and unfortunately missed and would have been an insane winner, really. Almost would have reminded you of coming back against Man United.
Yeah, yeah, that was right at the end there too. I think it was in stoppage time, but I'm fresh off the highlights, so my recollection of it is that it was a defender who tried to like pass it backwards, but ended up just passing it right to Palmer. And then yeah, I think Palmer was trying to slot it to the right, but it deflected off the keeper and just missed. And then yeah, yeah,
Yeah, just tough. And, Cole's had a couple of those where he's been so great that you expect him to score everything. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case with these guys. They're not perfect as much as we'd like them to be. But that would have been insane. And then, and I was tweeting about this, so maybe it's what you were alluding to as well. I don't know how I just completely forgot the end and all the controversy there. I
yeah,
mean, just absurd how it ends with a foul on Badiashile. Apparently pushes off a guy, then kicks a perfect little ball to Axel Disasi, who scores a great header. I mean, this is deep in stoppage time at this point.
Yeah,
Scores this goal. Nobody's really celebrating. I'm not really celebrating just because you know whether it's an offsides or something, they're going to be looking at it, especially that late in the match. Ref, of course, looks at it, says it's a foul on Benoit, and it was rage from him, from Disasi, from Gallagher, from Putch. I mean,
from Potch,
everybody
yeah.
was so pissed, you could just tell. I mean, I think there was probably a few more yells at the end just for all the arguing, but I don't know. It was. I'd love to get your thoughts on if you thought it was a foul.
Yeah, it to me it looked like one of those that could go either way. I don't generally about me, I don't love a call there. Just so yeah. So like I guess late in the match for something like that where it seems like that type of thing happens, you know, maybe not at all the time, but it's that type of thing happens and it doesn't always get called for sure. So it's like it's tough the way I see it to be able to make that call in certain big time instances when it's not always made. But I don't know. It wasn't like there was something there, I guess. But man, it's hard to I feel like it's hard to justify it either way in a sense, which is kind of a cop out answer, but hopefully you're understanding what I'm getting at.
I certainly understand your point. My points are pretty simple. Number one, I don't think it's a foul. I think he's slightly pushed, but I think that's just all part of the game, especially when guys are kind of jostling in those positions.
Yeah.
Number two, the way VAR is, it's so inconsistent. They just don't make the same calls every match, and that's what's frustrating. If this were to be a scenario where an attacker gets pushed in the same way, and let's say doesn't get a shot off or something in the box, you're not going to VAR and giving him a penalty for that same push, even if they do go to VAR. Have seen it a million times, and they're not giving that as a penalty. They're just not.
That's
So
true. That's true.
to say in this scenario that you let it happen, don't call it because he didn't call it right away. The ref did not make that call.
Yep.
So then for VAR to come in and say, all right, we're going to intervene here and we're going to say that this is an egregious mistake and to overturn it in that fashion, just completely unrealistic compared to what they would normally call. And that's what I think is so frustrating. I think that's what was frustrating Potch at the moment. And after the match, he basically let everyone have it, let VAR have it, said
Yep.
English football is in shambles because of VAR. It's a disgrace, a disgusting sport, essentially. He spit on the sport of English football.
Yeah, I saw his comments and he certainly didn't hold back. Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. I think it's especially because you have to overturn that, that no call basically, which that yeah. And to your point, that's not something that would be looked at if there wasn't a goal in the first place.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that's what we'll always have as long as VAR exists, whether you like it, whether you don't. I think there's pros and cons. I just think there probably needs to be some real specific rulings, and I don't know. It's probably impossible, and we could spend hours talking about it, but it is what it is. Ultimately, a great fight to come back and draw 2-2. Still giving yourself a chance. These, I think, four remaining matches to put yourself in a spot for Europe or just have momentum in the next year. So ultimately, I'm happy with how it ended up, and at least we saw some fight from the team.
Just be happy we have goal line technology unlike La Liga.
They don't have the technology for the ball going over the line.
Yeah, did you see the in El Clasico? Barcelona scored a goal that was clearly over the line, and it wasn't ruled a goal, and they said we don't have goal line technology in La Liga. Sorry. And
Wow.
yeah, all the other leagues, it's like you can just check if it was over the line or not.
I mean, My little second cousin's 5-year-old team has that tech.
Yeah. Yeah, it's whatever. We won't get into that right now, especially because I'm going to be talking about Real Madrid and showing them the utmost respect, of course.
As you should, as you
So,
should.
yeah. Okay, so now we can move on to our preview of the big time UCL semifinals first leg happening this week on Tuesday, April 30th, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time at the Allianz Arena in Germany. Um, Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid.
Going to be an awesome match. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think I'm probably actually going to work from home so that I can watch it.
Yeah, I did write down a little bit of a predicted lineup here, so I can kind of give that, and we can maybe give our thoughts about it. But we kind of already talked a little bit about the players with the injury situation. But I've been thinking a lot about what Thomas Tuchel's tactics are going to be for this one. And to start, I think it's obvious. I think Neuer will be the keeper in between the sticks. And then I think that on the left side, he's probably gonna do what he did against Arsenal, which is the Mazraoui and then Guerrero, um, Guerrero up at the wing, kind of tandem defensive thing because that worked well. Like it worked way better than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, I could definitely see him doing that again. I forget what position does Sane play if he's out there.
I think that Zane will be on the right wing, and I think that Musiala is gonna be in the like middle, the 10.
Okay, I just didn't know if Sane was on that left wing and if Guerrero would be
Yeah.
taking his spot or not. So
Yeah, no, Zane's usually on the right, and then a lot of times Musiala will play in that left wing, but I think that he's gonna play in the 10 on this one, and then yeah, I think Guerrero's gonna be on the left wing. Um, and I can't really like talk any shit about that because I'm really pleased with how Guerrero's been playing. Um, Now again, like I'm pleased with how Mazraoui's been playing as well, but he's naturally a right back and he's also coming back from injury, so like I don't know. I would maybe have a little bit of a shorter leash on that situation. However, yeah, with the injuries, it's like they don't have many options. And based off of how Alphonso Davies has been playing, I don't really feel confident with having him out on the left wing. The other option would be like to play, like I said, Musiala on the left wing, Zane on the right, and then like Muller in the 10, and then Guerrero at the left back or Mazraoui, I guess take your pick and bench the other one.
yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there. I'll just add a note that I thought was funny when Davies came in on Saturday's match. He just slipped immediately after coming in, which I thought was hilarious because
Yeah.
you give him shit all the time and he hasn't been that great. So it was just a comical moment.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I guess to clarify, because I do give him shit a lot, I think he's a great player. I think part of the reason why I'm hard on him is because he can be so much better. He has been so much better. Um, and yeah, I don't know like what he's been getting a lot of hate online too, which I really don't like. It just seems like something about Alphonso Davies' mindset lately has just been I don't know, far away, planets away. Or I guess countries maybe. Maybe he's already in Madrid. Maybe he'll just stay there.
Could be, yeah. But if there's one thing you can change as a player is stepping up in big moments. And whether it's him, whether it's Mazarawi, Guerrero, anybody who's on the pitch, if you want to make yourself known to your fans, to your country, to Europe, play great in a big match, in a big moment in this semifinal of the Champions League, and nobody will ever remember what was going on with you prior because you'll be a star. So
Yeah.
you could see that happen with him, or like I said, with anybody else. So
Yeah.
that's something to watch for sure too.
In the Arsenal second leg, the only goal that Bayern scored was a beautiful run from Sané into a beautiful cross to Guerrero, who controlled the ball brilliantly and then just set it up perfectly with another cross for Kimmich to score that header. So in my mind, guys like Guerrero, who you don't necessarily think about when you think about this big star power team, guys like Guerrero can make the difference. And that's why I think I would love to see him start.
Yeah, he certainly has momentum on his side, and he's been part of the teams that have been winning games and creating that momentum as a team. So I think everybody wants to see him out there, fans, coach, you know, analysts, podcasters.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
might as well play him.
Sweet. Um, yeah, so I guess we kind of jumped around a little bit, which is like what I was hoping for with the discussion. But to round out the attack, it'll be none other than Harry Kane. Now in my head, I've actually been toying around with maybe Tuchel isn't going to do a 4-2-3-1 like he usually does, just because of, you know, he's sometimes changes up formations in big matches and there's been those injuries, and I don't know what's going to happen, but assuming it's the standard formation for Bayern, Kane will be the striker. And we already had our big Harry Kane love fest on this episode, which, if it was up to me, every episode would be a Harry Kane love fest. But we'll see, we'll see what happens with the man himself. I hope he can come through.
Yeah, I'd love to go back and look. I'm sure I could if I pulled it up, but I'd love to see Kane's stats against Real Madrid if he's played them at all. I mean, I know Tottenham doesn't like to get in any huge matches in European football.
I know he's got his I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is, but his countryman Jude Bellingham over there on Madrid. So there's a ton of star power just looking at these two lineups, which is why I think it's so exciting. Yeah, yeah, you can say, I don't know. I don't think it's that much of a leap to say this is essentially the Champions League final. I would be pretty shocked if, especially if Real Madrid won this match and then didn't win the final. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on this one.
PSG would like a word,
Yeah, yeah, and yeah,
just because they just locked up League Un, so they're going for their form of winning every trophy that they could win. But funny you brought up Bellingham there and the English narrative, just because I was going to mention something with Kane. I saw he had some comments about how he thinks Jude's having such a great season, and then of course hopes that he doesn't play well these next two matches. But cool to see. I mean, they're essentially the two biggest stars that England has right now, especially as they're looking forward to the Euros in summer. So that'll be really interesting. Jude obviously is very young. He's not even 21 years old yet, widely seen as the best young player in European football. So him kind of on the pitch with Harry Kane is really awesome. Like you said, star power all over the place. So just love to see that.
okay, yeah. So that's where I'm thinking the attack's going with Bayern. The midfield, we're gonna see Leon Goretzka, and then it's a question of, is Konrad Laimer healthy? If he is, he might start. I think that the other option is Pavlovic, which, two good options, kind of depends on how you want to play. Um, I've been super, super impressed with Konrad Laimer lately, the last 3 or 4 matches. He has been just a complete workhorse, which is what he's known for. He's known as someone who's going to run for 90 minutes basically and just, yeah, use that stamina and kind of, like you saw against Frankfurt, use his body and make things happen.
Yeah, I think midfield is certainly a battle that could decide the match, both of the matches that they're going to have both legs. Real Madrid, I don't know enough about kind of their ancillary players, if you will. I'm kind of looking at their lineup now against Man City just because I was interested to see who's really leading that midfield charge. Bellingham's kind of more the attacker in that midfield. But looking at what they went with against City, they did have Cruz in there, the German, and then Camavinga, who I know is a great player. So that's going to be tough. I mean, those names, I know they're obviously very talented. So whoever Bayern puts in there, they're going to have to really grind it out, I think, and try to be winning the ball back as much as they can and stopping the midfield of Real Madrid.
100%. I'm about ready to call Real Madrid the best team in the world. It's if they win the Champions League, okay? I guess at this point, throughout this entire season, I've thought that Real Madrid and Man City are the two best teams in the world. Obviously, Arsenal comes in there, but as you and I have mentioned, we kind of have our thoughts about Arsenal being maybe a little bit overrated. Um, but I think when you look at Real Madrid's lineup, like you said, how can you not think they're best or second best in the world, you know? And they just beat Man City.
Yeah, and you could argue whether you thought City was the better team. I don't really care what you argue because, frankly, Real Madrid won that match. So they, in my eyes, are the better team. Yeah, you look all across the pitch, they got amazing players. Their defense is super, super solid
Yep.
and super experienced. You know, you got Rudiger as one of their center backs, won a Champions League with Chelsea. You know, he's a top defender. And Nacho isn't a joke either. You know, Mendy at left back is great. I think actually one of the more fun things for me to watch here will be the battle of the aging stars for both teams coming off the bench. You got Muller for Bayern Munich, and then you also got Luka Modric, the
Yep.
Croatian, for Real Madrid. Two players that have kind of dominated in their own respects club football, European football, and world football on the national level. That's something that could decide this semifinal because super subs are very important in these matches.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's the thing too with guys like that and like you said with Rudiger and really almost all of Real Madrid, they they have that Champions League experience, which is something that Arsenal didn't have. Real Madrid has that prestige and that allure of being a successful Champions League club that, you know, that type of thing I think helped Bayern against Arsenal. You kind of knock that out for this match. And then Real Madrid, similar to Bayern Munich, like you basically just said, has that what I think is the key to winning any sort of big European tournament is that combination of experienced veterans who have done it all and then bright young stars. There's really, yeah, no holes in Real Madrid's roster, which is why I think they're such a scary team. I think that super sub um, uh, clash of the aging, you know, world stars is going to be super fun to watch too. And I think, like you said, especially in Champions League semifinals, you know, maybe if it's a tie, maybe if you start, you know, going into extra time, that type of thing is going to be super fun to watch.
So I'll agree with you that I don't think Real Madrid has a ton of holes. I will say one spot I'm looking at as a potential hole is the goalie. They've been
Yeah,
using Lunin, the Ukrainian, and he's been fine. Their backup is Kepa Arrizabalaga on loan from Chelsea, but the arguably best goalie in the world, Courtois, has been out all season, I think, with the torn ACL. Made
yeah,
the roster technically. I don't see him coming back just because it's too important, but that's one spot. I would say Bayern has the edge, even though Neuer is aging. He's still a phenomenal keeper. So something to keep an eye on, whether it could be a mistake with a pass or maybe a miscommunication with a defender potentially. You never know. Things like that, small mistakes can decide a match.
yeah, especially in Champions League, especially in these big semifinals, that type of thing can definitely be the difference maker. And I think you need a little bit of luck sometimes too. And that's the thing too that I've noticed with Neuer being back. The whole team really does play differently with him back there. They're just so much more confident. He's yeah, that like sweeper style goalie that just like completely can change a match. Um and then yeah, the way that he communicates with the defense, which I didn't even kind of throw my prediction out there yet outside of Mazraoui, but yeah, we'll probably see Kimmich at the right back, and then I think Eric Dyer is going to start for sure. I think the other center back is going to depend on if Delict is healthy. Yeah, exactly. Major fist pumps in the air for Dyer. Yeah, if Delict is healthy, he'll probably start, but otherwise, I think Kim will get the start. And yeah, with Neuer back there, kind of commanding things, he hoped that a tight ship will be had.
Yeah, love to hear your confidence in Dyer. Delict, as of now, will be on my TBD list for playing. Had a pretty sizable limp after the match against Frankfurt.
Yep.
Was he just kind of making sure that it was okay and not putting weight on it? Maybe so. I don't know him personally, so he's probably a tough son of a gun, and he'll probably fight through.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I've heard almost conflicting things. Someone I think it was not Tuchel, but I think it was somebody in the organization sounded confident that he was gonna play, but then when he was asked about it, he was basically like, I don't know. Like we have to see. So it's it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna go out there and after all this, give my official prediction of Real Madrid 2, Bayern Munich 1 for this one.
Really
I yeah, I hate to bet against Bayern. Although when I did that against Arsenal, it worked in my favor, so maybe I'll just keep that going. But I just think the thinness in Bayern's roster right now and the constant changes with who's healthy and who's not is going to be a little bit too much to overcome against Real Madrid. Again, I'm saying that Real Madrid is the best team in the world. I'm someone who rates Bayern very highly as well, even with all their struggles this year. So that's my prediction.
interesting because you're essentially saying that Real Madrid will advance to the final, which is fine, reasonable. I'm sure they're favored to win by the odds makers, but if you're Bayern, you need to get a victory or at least a draw at home. I personally am predicting a draw in this first leg. I'm going to say it's going to be 1-1. I just think it's high stakes, and I think Bayern is going to be up to the task, and they're going to play pretty defensive. And I don't say that in a way to mean that they'll be passive, but I think they'll just be very strong defensively, which I think will bode well for them. I do think Kane will get a goal, and then screw it, Bellingham will get a goal for Real Madrid. So I got 1-1, and I would lean toward Real Madrid then advancing to the final in the second leg. Um, but yeah, things could change, and that's my prediction as of now.
Hey, that's a solid prediction. I also agree. I think Bayern's going to play very, very defensively and very strong. Real Madrid's one of those teams that can score out of seemingly nothing, which obviously worries me. Um, but yeah, I'm just excited overall. It's a historic matchup. I'm ready to be there and basically go down with the ship because this is Bayern's last hope for a trophy this season, or rise over the ashes of a bloody but beautiful battlefield.
That's a beautiful quote right there that you could fit into a movie someday for the video of Real Madrid winning the 2024 Champions League. Tough scenes. Is
Yeah,
the not that I want to change gears, but is the other semifinal Wednesday, I assume?
yeah, it's the eighth. Oh, you're talking about the PSG and Dortmund,
I was,
not
yes.
not leg two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I believe PSG Dortmund is Wednesday, which is the 31st. Is there 31 days in April?
There are 30, I believe.
Okay, so oh yeah, May 1st. Yeah. And then leg two is on May 8th for Bayern and Real Madrid. So we'll see how
That's
that
right. Yeah,
goes.
they usually switch that up Tuesday one and then Wednesday the next, which arguably is way worse for whoever starts on Wednesday and then has less time to come back Tuesday. But I
Yeah.
digress.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've we've been going for a bit here. I think that about wraps up what I wanted to talk about. There's a few other like pieces of news and distractions in the air for Bayern, but I don't even know if I want to talk about that stuff right now.
No distractions heading into a semifinal. Got to keep your mind fresh and focused on the next opponent, Real Madrid.
Exactly, exactly. So, all right, I think that'll about do it for us. Like I said, check out the YouTube channel. If I have time to put up a video tomorrow, we'll see, but there'll at least be a podcast out. So, thank you for listening. As always, go Bayern.
London is purple.